Now, South Africa's ability to reach net zero emission targets has again come under scrutiny. That's as analysts say the country is unlikely to reach the set target by only relying on renewables. Executive engineer at CBI Electric, Dr. Andrew Dickson, speaks to us about this. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Dickson. There are the set targets, and it's a global expectation due to the agreements that South Africa has made with the world economy. Where do we stand in getting towards those targets by 2050?
Morning, Tumisang. Thank you for having me. So we're quite a way off. There are certainly many irons in the fire at the moment, but we need to be upping the game. We need to be pushing the boundaries, and we certainly need to be looking at a very dynamic portfolio.
Where does that particularly place South Africa with regards to a dynamic need of solutions in this regard?
So we are focusing very heavily, obviously, on the renewable side of things, solar, wind, which play a very important role in the bigger picture. However, the economy needs more power. And if we're going to stimulate the economy, we're certainly going to need to be able to drive industry. And for that, we're going to need more base load. And for that, my take on that is we are going to need nuclear in there. And nuclear will provide us with sort of a very good base to replace a lot of our coal fleet. Now, I know nuclear has a bad name. Certainly, there are countries which are sort of closing down on the nuclear side of things. But we need to be investing on that side to ensure that once we come out of the load shedding side of things, once we meet the international requirements on net neutral carbon, we have the ability then to actually drive the economy forward.
I'm glad you said it. Nuclear does have a bad name, but is there any quantification of why South Africa is wary of going in that direction?
I think you've got two options or two views on that. One is the time to deploy. So certainly we've had our challenges deploying base power to the country. So the time to get nuclear up and running is obviously an issue. And then again, the risks associated with nuclear, but there's risks with anything. What we need is stabilization, and nuclear certainly would provide that stabilization. And at the same time, as I said, shut down some of the coal fleet to get to that net neutral.
Now, with the elements that you've raised so far, Dr. Dickson, it will dictate a considerable amount of funds to be plugged into this particular project and reaching those targets as they have been set. Does South Africa have the financial muscle to do so?
I can't answer completely whether we have the muscle to do so, but I think we need to find the muscle. Certainly, you've seen recently in the press that the money is being pushed towards the transmission grid system to ensure that we can get the renewables online and that we can get from where we are taking, particularly in the Northern Cape, solar, get it down onto the grid. The advantage with something like nuclear is you can actually move that to a more centralized location. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of studies that need to be going with that, but it means that you're not having to upgrade everything in the system to enable power back onto the grid. So there's pros and cons. We're going to have to find the money, and we're going to have to start that sooner rather than later.
We sit with an electricity crisis currently. It's been noted that this is a huge impediment with regards to South Africa reaching those net zero targets. Talk to us about how far South Africa is being affected by this.
So, like everything, it's an effect, a health effect, obviously the revenue loss at the moment without being able to generate power or sufficient power with rolling blackouts. And all these things have an ultimate financial impact on every citizen of the country. And so if we can start to push back on that, to sort of eat away chunk by chunk on that, I think you will find it presents a better front to every citizen, and then we can slowly start to grow things. Obviously, again, still aiming at those targets, which to me, from a global perspective, is very necessary.
Necessary, but would we say that those targets are in a foreseeable future realistic, given that there's sentiment from the Minister of Minerals and Energy that has been pushing against some of the elements that require South Africa to get to those agreed targets?
I think you'll find that the push is, and many countries will go through this. I think first and foremost, I would agree we have to stabilize the economy, and therefore that pushback happens. But at the same time, we can't be resistant to change, and we can't be resistant to adopting a varied energy portfolio. So we need to be working on that. And I think, like every citizen, when Eskom puts out the request to curtail your usage of electricity, we need to be doing the same thing as a country and saying, this is not a good place to be in. We're an emerging market. We have the potential, but let's do it smartly.
Lastly, there have been some positive gains and announcements made by the Minister of Electricity, newly elected as he is in this country, given the challenges that we face. Is industry confident in the political will for South Africa to play with the rest of the globe in reaching these targets?
I think so. Again, we've only had about a year now. We've got some time to go, and I think we need to give it time, but at the same time, as general society, we need to be pushing and ensuring that we're going in the right direction.
Dr. Andrew Dickson there speaking to us about developments with regards to South Africa's energy mix and indicating that not only renewables are going to ensure that the country reaches its targets towards net zero.